Mike Eckler, rank that in terms of a loss. A, it's a massive loss. My goodness, they just lost just short of Josh Heupel. But F is, I think everything's going to be okay, because I think it's going to be okay. And as a matter of fact, I've got some ideas on how to make this staff better. Hit like and subscribe now. We greatly appreciate that. So, Caleb, where did you rank, or where do you rank the Eckler loss?
I mean, the only reason I don't say F, if I'm being honest with you, Dave, is because I don't.
Harsh.
Well, no, because Mike Eckler's like motivational factors I'll put some value on, but like from an X's and O's standpoint, I don't think he brought much to the table. I mean, he was almost. I mean, it's kind of like, and you never like to do this, but whenever you hear about the coach that's really good at motivating his players, that's almost code for he ain't the greatest X's and O's guy, isn't it?
Yeah, you're exactly right. So I think it's a C loss. I mean, I do think he had a year last year with special teams, particularly in the return game. Not so much in coverage. They were about average. I would have to say it's a C. Just I'm going to go right down the middle here, because I think there are guys out there that Tennessee can replace. And it was hard to get Eckler. It was hard to get anybody to sign up on this staff at one point. But, Caleb, I do believe that they can actually upgrade the position. And let's open our minds for a second. Let's forget the fact that he coached outside linebacker. Do you need, honestly, 2 linebacker coaches when you only play 2 at the same time out of your base? Will somebody help me with that? You can call this whatever you want, but I'll go ahead and throw the name out there. I would call a guy like Trooper Taylor. And some of you may not be old enough to remember him, which makes me feel old, but there's an excitable guy that relates to his players very well. And Caleb, I'll go ahead and throw this in. He coached a lot of Tennessee special teams that he never got credit for. I don't know that he would necessarily pick up the phone, but we'll throw it out there. That's who I would hire tomorrow. He would have been the first call I made. He loves Knoxville. He basically took a little break. He was still coaching at Arkansas State. To give you all a little background. Very excitable guy, coached receivers and running backs for Tennessee. Wanted the associate head coach title, offensive coordinator. He did not get that, so he went to Oklahoma State. And then at that point, his wife wanted to pursue her graduate degree. I believe she's a psychologist. Don't quote me on that. And his son wanted to play at Arkansas State. So he kind of took a little bit of a coaching sabbatical. He still coached for Arkansas State. Don't get me wrong. But since then, he's decided, I'm going to run up the chain again and do something that most people can't do, be successful twice. So he's been at Duke. He's the associate head coach right now at Texas A&M, where he coaches running backs. You can call it what you want to, and you have, Caleb. Running back's kind of a glorified position where you want a great recruiter. I don't know who you shipped around, or if you just want to call him offensive coach, OC. I don't care. But that's a way to make your staff better, and he can slay it in recruiting. And I know there was a lot of whispers, how's he having so much success? There was no cheating going on. It was just he was hot, and he got hot at Tennessee, and he works it tirelessly. A man who doesn't drink or smoke, and I'm not judging anybody by that, but he is an incredible coach, and I think that would be who I would call.
I mean, I'm actually totally with you on this sense. If you could get him on a deal, I think the most important thing on this, and I'm going to be honest, Dave, the most important thing is to save money. And I think that's why they let Mike Ekeler walk to begin with. His contract was up. And I say that with all the respect in the world for Trooper Taylor. Look, I'm one that felt, I thought he jumped too soon in 2007, but I thought Philip Fulmer should have made the offer immediately when Cutcliffe left. My understanding when I was covering Tennessee at that time, and you know more than I do, he was studying under Cutcliffe. I'm sorry?
Not necessarily. Go ahead.
But my understanding is Trooper Taylor was basically, Cutcliffe took him under his wing to like develop him to be the next offensive coordinator. And Philip Fulmer, for some God knows why reason, delayed his decision. I'm like, if he's studying under Cutcliffe's wing, I don't know why Fulmer doesn't just promote him. Because also, guys, if you don't remember, if Trooper Taylor's promoted to offensive coordinator, Tennessee likely keeps Terrell Pryor as the quarterback that year.
A blast from the past.
Yeah, right. And they likely have a lot of success. So I was a fan of that promotion. Trooper Taylor now, though, as a running backs coach and assistant head coach at Texas A&M is going to command a lot more money. If you're hiring him to be an outside linebackers and special teams coordinator, I don't think he's worth the money, Dave. I'm sorry. I just don't. And
but listen to what you're telling me. This has gotten this with NIL. I know that you're thinking that in the back of your mind, right? That's where you want to feed the money. You want the Jimmies and Joes that helped Eckler have a great return game. It was more about the Jimmies and Joes than it was the X's and O's. So you're telling me that that's where you're going to save money. I mean, what number would you throw out there in hopes of landing it?
Well, how much was Mike Ekeler making last year?
Well, I'm looking that up, but I can tell you that he's going to want certain things like the associate head coach to his name. He's not going to take less money. He's not going to take a discount. And it's not that he's poor. It's just pride. That's not.
No, okay. I just looked up. Eckler's made $575,000. I'm sorry. I don't really want to pay above 500 for anybody right now as an assistant. Tennessee just upped Tim Banks' salary. Mike Eckler's whole contract. I mean, which for those who don't know, in this age of NIL, that is probably worth one superstar or two starters, 500,000 at this point. And
that's a gamble, Caleb. You know what you're getting with Taylor.
I don't, but you're asking him to be a special teams coordinator. I don't think there's a lot of value in a special teams coordinator in today's game, unless you have somebody that's like Alan Lowry or Joe Avisano, like you brought up yesterday. But even then, it's 1/12 of the game. It's a small part of the game.
I agree with that. I don't care where you put him. Make him an offensive coach. It doesn't matter. You can just call him the OC offensive coach. So I don't care. He could do special teams if he wants to, but to bring him in and to be that same type of fiery leader that Eckler had, probably with not as much coarse language, but also the fact that he can step into South Florida or Texas and recruit like the Dickens. And that's what Tennessee needs. So you're telling me, and I want to give you a second to respond to this. You're telling me right now that you think Tennessee's coaching staff is good enough to win a national championship from a recruiting standpoint. That's what you're telling me. Today's tough question. Let's go ahead and put that up on the poll. Would you be disappointed, and you can phrase that however you'd like, would you be disappointed if Tennessee just hired from within? Because I think you and I can agree that would be the worst. Today's tough question brought to you by Banks & Jones.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott.
Okay, so they've hovered right around the 10 to 12 mark under Josh Heupel. Do you believe that's good enough from a recruiting standpoint to win a championship?
This day and age in college football, yes. And more importantly, I totally disagree with you. I would be totally fine if Tennessee promoted from within to replace Mike Ekeler. I think this is a throwaway position job. Okay, honestly, just a recruiter situation. I think the money to pay players is more important than the coaches to coach them at this day and age in college football now. And I don't really think – here's where you could sell me on Trooper Taylor. If you got rid of Joey Halsley, if you got rid of a couple of staff members, I could be sold on Trooper Taylor.
I mean, seems like a nice guy, but I would make that move in a heartbeat.
So then let's talk about that. But just to replace Mike Eckler, no. You'd have to pay him too much money. And I don't think it's worth paying an entire staff that much money. You got to, if you're going to do that, you need to unload a couple of staff members and hire other guys on the cheap. I mean, money is a thing now in college football. You don't want to overspend on coaching. I think for the longest time, and let's call it what it is. Let's just take this on a broader scale for a minute, Dave. We have agreed that over maybe the past 10, 15 years, coaching salaries have gotten way out of whack, right?
Mm-hmm.
That happened because players weren't getting paid. So all the money was being spent on coaches to try to get the best coach that could get the best players. I think we're not paying attention to this long term, but the long-term trend in college football with NIL being a factor now is coaching salaries are not going to grow at the rate they've been growing. And those are going to slow dramatically because that money's got to be spent on players. And at some point, people are going to realize the players are more valuable than the coaches this day and age in college football. A general manager, there's going to be an NIL general manager that goes and like recruits and buys players soon enough. And that will be more valuable than any coach in college football. And I think that's about 10 years within the next 10 years. No longer are the coaches the biggest stars on their college football teams, quite honestly. And I mean, I think you are entering kind of an NFL era where the players are going to be, the players make the organization, not the coaches. And with that in mind, I don't think you replace an on-field position coach with a guy who would command even $200,000 more dollars. That's $200,000 you can spend on somebody. So I can't go there right now. And I'm
from what I've been told, it's going to be Lavorne Hartman. He's a defensive analyst right now. I'd be shocked if he didn't get it. I would, though, like to take a look at the poll question and see if people are on board with me, because that would be hiring from within. And that's just not, I think that sends a really bad signal to your fan base. What's the poll question at now? What do we have that cooking at?
Everybody agrees with me. Would you be disappointed if Tennessee just hired from within to replace Mike Ekeler? 78% say no, they wouldn't be disappointed, just like me. So Dave, you're alone on this, buddy.
Oh, it's not the first time. I'm sticking by it, though. I think you can make a semi-splash hire if you go out and get the wrong guy. I don't care if it turns into an offensive type of position. But let me ask you this, going back to what you said. Would you fire Joey Halzle and hire Trooper Taylor tomorrow, or let's just say any offensive coordinator you see out there? Do you think this offense needs a fresh set of eyes? Because I do, big time.
Yes, I actually would. I would in a heartbeat. And I know people will be like, well, Trooper Taylor's not experienced in the spread, or Trooper Taylor doesn't coach quarterbacks. I don't care. Josh Heupel is experienced in Josh Heupel's offense, and Josh Heupel coaches quarterbacks. So I don't really think Joey Halzle was ever that necessary. I would hire Trooper Taylor, and I would just make him the offensive coordinator and even make him the quarterback's coach. Hell, Josh Heupel's one doing that anyway. And yes, he becomes a fresh set of eyes. And as time goes on and Trooper Taylor gets more familiar with Josh Heupel's offense, my understanding about Trooper is he's a very fast learner. So if he picks up Josh Heupel's if he were to pick up Josh Heupel's offense, I think that Trooper Taylor would become a very good, it may take a year, but he would eventually become a very good fresh set of eyes for this offense.